wanted to explain a little bit about how I've been setting up these new quadcopters from Blade. The new ones like the Nano and the 180QX and especially the 350QX have some kind of complicated flight modes and features that they can do through the radio. For example, the 180QX has three different flight modes: agile mode, stable mode with high rates, and stable mode with low rates. And then it also has a switch that you can use to control the camera. So you need to use two channels on your radio to control that stuff. And sometimes if you're not using one of the radios that's listed in the manual, they're just giving us radio setups now. They're not telling us how the aircraft actually works and letting you figure out the radio yourself. So that distracts a little bit from understanding what's going on, and it can be kind of tricky to figure out how to make things work. So I'm going to explain very simply how the flight modes and other controls work on the new Blade helicopters and how to set up your radio if you've got, like I do, a 9503 or a 9303 or one of the Futaba radios. You got a Spectrum module, or you got a 9X and you got a Spectrum module, something like that. This should make it easy to understand how to set up the flight modes. The simple explanation of how flight modes and stuff work on the new Blade quadcopters is just this channel 5 and 6 over here. Now these channels are called different things in different modes. They're called the gear channel and the flaps channel on most radios with the Spectrum setup for planes, and then in helis this is usually the gain for your gyro, and I think this is the second, left or right swash servo. So the goal of controlling your flight modes is to get a 3-position switch to control this channel and a 2-position switch to control this channel. So this is going to be your flight modes channel, and this is going to be your optional stuff like your return to home in the 350 or your camera switch on the 180. So it's very simple to do this, but on some radios you're going to need some weird programming if you want to use certain switches. Now, I'm real picky about what switches I use. In my 350QX, I wanted this 3-position switch up here to control the flight modes. Then I wanted this switch to control the return to home. And as you can see, that is exactly backwards from what they are supposed to control. This one normally controls gear and this one normally controls flaps. And they need to be the other way around. So I had to do some special programming to get it to work, but that's the bottom line. If you can get your 3-position that you want to use for flight modes onto this channel, and your 2-position that you want to use for return to home or the camera onto this channel, then you're done. That's all you need to do. So if you're using a Futaba radio or something like that, just figure out how to get these channels working the way you want and you're done. It's that simple. And if you want to do it the easy way, find some switches that control those channels already and use those switches. I wasn't comfortable with that, so I did something a little more involved, and I'm going to show that here. But if you have some other radio or something, the rest of this video might not be too helpful for you. Alright, I'm going to show the setup for the 180QX first because I think it's a little simpler. On the 180QX, I wanted this switch here to control the flight modes, and then I wanted this toggle switch to control the camera because this switch, it's momentary. So I set it up as an airplane. That's the easiest way to do it. Then I went into the device setup and I set the gear channel to be the flap switch. Okay, so that's one of the switches you can set on that one. And then notice that this is one of the channels that can normally be controlled by that toggle switch, which is called button. So, but I set it to the flap switch. Then I went over to this channel. This channel is the one that I wanted to be operated by that toggle switch, right? Well, that's not an option. So I was like, alright, can I do it with this one? No. How about that one? No. This one, Ah, yes. Okay, you can use it there. So, had to set that channel to be controlled by the toggle switch. And then I basically just inhibited these other three channels. And then it's very simple. So I already had this switch operating the gear channel, remember, like I said I wanted. Okay, and then I had the toggle switch operating aux 4, remember, like that. So then all you do is you go in here into your mixes and you copy aux 4 over to aux 1, just 100% straight up mix. Could have used a simpler mix for this, but mix 1 was fine. And that makes it so that the toggle switch, basically it's just copied over. Then it's also reversed. I reversed it as well just to make it work the way I needed it. So that's camera off, and then, you know, trigger a picture. You know, if you click it and release, it triggers a picture, or it starts and stops the video when you do that. Then this controls my flight modes. This is stable mode, low rates, stable mode, high rates, and then this is agile mode. On the 350, I wanted to use different switches. I wanted to use this one still for flight mode, but I wanted to use this switch for the return to home because I want to be able to switch it on and leave it on. And so that means I need this to output on the gear channel and this one on the flaps channel. And as you can see, that's backwards from what they are normally. So I went in here and I was like, alright, gear channel, flap switch, no problem. That works great. Flap channel to gear switch, right? No. Not allowed. So again, I had to go over here. This was the only channel where I could assign the gear switch. So I assigned the gear switch there. Inhibit these channels. If I didn't do the inhibit here, there was other stuff going on the flaps channel. So you have to inhibit those two, and then act that one. So then you go in here, you can see, alright, the 3-position switch on the gear channel, that's working great. And then I had to do a mix, so I used this, and all I did was just aux 4 to aux 1 like I did on the 180QX. But remember, it's working off a different switch now. So now I have this set up basically. 3-position switch for my flight modes, and then when I want to turn on the return to home, I just flip that switch. So very simple, but you do, you know, have to use a mix to get it totally working on this radio. If you don't have that problem, great, but you know, I heard that the DX18 can basically assign any channel to any switch, but I wonder if it's like this one too, you know, where you're limited. You can assign the switches sort of how you want, but you're limited a little bit. So if you're picky like me, you know, I absolutely had to have my return to home over here because I'm not comfortable letting go of this stick while I'm flying. That's just a habit I got into in helis. This is my, you know, flight mode switch for helis too. So I hope that helps you. Yeah, just keep in mind, you know, this is the flight mode channel and that's the accessories channel, if you will, and everything should work out if you can get that part to work how you want it.